Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to the latest machine I've added to my lineup, Jersey Jack's Harry Potter, specifically the arcade edition. So in this video, I just want to go over a few high-level items. First and foremost is the delivery of the machine. Then I want to talk about the unboxing process. After that, we'll talk about the initial setup and tweaks I had to make the game play well. And then last but not least, we will talk about gameplay, shots, layout, code, all that good stuff. If you don't want to stick around to the end, let me just say here, this game's fantastic, but you'll hear more about that as we go through this video. So stick around. Before we go much further, I think it's important to discuss why I chose to go with the arcade edition versus the Wizard edition or the collector's edition of this machine. And for the uninitiated, the arcade edition is the cheapest of the three options, and that is exactly why I went with it. Also, if you're unaware, the playfield is the exact same between the arcade edition, the Wizard edition, which is the next step up, and the collector's edition. I believe the collector's edition does have different color wireforms, but that doesn't really matter to me. So one was price, and then two, what you get on the Wizard edition versus the arcade edition that makes it worth the money. So again, if you don't know, you get rad cals, which are a much nicer version of the cabinet art than standard decals. You get I believe it's an actual back glass instead of a translite, so it's glass and not plastic, so it just looks better. You get art blades on the side of the machine, so in inner art blades. You get a shaker motor on the Wizard edition, and you get Invisiglass on the Wizard edition. Those are all cool things, don't get me wrong, but it's not $2,000 worth of cool in my opinion. So what I've done to mine, and I don't have the glass in there right now, but what I've done is I actually bought some Pin Glass Plus from Multimorphic, and that stuff's fantastic. I put that in there so that makes up for the Invisiglass not being there. I bought a shaker motor from Pinball Life, put that in there, and I've got mirror blades on order. So once I install those three items, or once I just get the mirror blades in there, because the shaker motor is already installed, in my opinion, it's basically just as good as a Wizard edition. Also, the Wizard edition does have a headphone jack and exterior volume control on the outside of the cabinet. Again, not something I'm super worried about. So I bought this machine directly through Zach at Flippin' Out Pinball, and I got on his early interested list before this game was even announced, so that's why I was able to get it so quickly. So Zach and Nicole from Flippin' Out, if you are watching this on that off chance, thank you very much for hooking me up with this. But basically, even though I bought it from Flippin' Out Pinball, it was delivered through Jersey Jack's delivery service. They don't drive on gravel. It's against company policy for them to drive on gravel driveways. So I called the delivery company early on. I was like, hey, I have a really long gravel driveway. Can you guys bring a small truck to deliver this? And they made it sound like it wasn't a big deal. When the delivery driver showed up in an 18-wheeler, we had a problem, right? It wasn't gonna work. So kudos to the delivery company driver, because he saw the predicament I was in and helped me load this bad boy onto my truck and helped me unload it at my house. So thank you very much, delivery driver guy. I don't remember the gentleman's name, but a very kind man. So whenever you buy a new unboxed pinball machine, you're always gonna find something. There's always a few gremlins running around, and there's no different for this game. So when I first unboxed it, one thing that really stood out to me right away, and it's gonna be hard to see, you probably can't see it actually, but there's actually bubbles. You might be able to see right here. There's a bubble probably the size of a nickel or a dime right here in the decal. And there's also multiple other smaller bubbles in the decal on the side of my game. Not the end of the world, but that's one thing that I did notice from day one. Then I kind of did an inspection of the underside of the playfield. And as I was doing that, I noticed that there were two of these screws. Let's see if we can get it to focus. Two of these screws in the bottom of the cabinet. So that, again, happens sometimes. So I dug around in the cabinet, found the screws, and then one of them was actually to hold the mech associated with the drop target of the Death Eater onto the playfield. Screwed that one back in, and for the life of me, I cannot find where this second screw goes. So I'm holding on to it, but right now, not too sure where it goes. Unfortunately, that wasn't the biggest issue I ran into. The biggest issue I've ran into, and it's going to be hard to tell from the camera, but if you look at the glare of the lights on the playfield, and there's no glass on this right now, by the way, but if you look at the glare of the lights on the playfield, something ain't right here. I've never bought a new unboxed Jersey Jack before, but as you can see, for example, you see Ron's chin right there and how that glare just jumps around really weird looking? Yeah, my playfield's, it's got some wave to it, especially by the inserts. And then also, again, just in some weird spots like by Ron's chin. And then also, if you go back in the playfield even further, it does some weird stuff. This is not dimpling. There are dimples in this. I have been playing in it. It's some sort of weird wave. Not too sure what's going on there. I did compare this to a game that's local. So a location got a Harry Potter, and their playfield was smooth as glass. So something's up with this. I got a note out to Zach at Flipping Out, so we're gonna see what happens there, but hopefully we get this resolved. While I was looking at the playfield, I also noticed that we have got some hairline cracks in the ramp where this rivet is. Not the end of the world, but again, it's a brand new machine, and my experience with plastic ramps is they tend to continue to make micro cracks as you play. So I again reported that to Flipping Out Pinball, and hopefully something gets resolved with those. They've been responsive to my emails, and we're just waiting on some feedback from Jersey Jack. So there's two other issues I wanted to talk about, and they're best discussed with the playfield up. So one of them was the drop target associated with the Death Eater or the villain mech. And that's what we're looking at right here. During gameplay, the drop target would act erratically. So it would randomly shoot up and go down for no reason. I tested the opto and switch test, and it seemed to test out okay. So I just did the very basic thing was just came down here, unplugged all of the plugs associated with that mech, reseated them, and then I also unplugged and reseated the USB-C cable associated with that back to the hub. And that, luckily enough, fixed my problem. So that was an easy fix, not a huge deal. Something that's still problematic is the flippers. So the flippers for me are just really, really hot. They run super hot, and I'm not too sure why. So I've checked the end of stroke switches on these bad boys. I have checked to make sure that the end of stroke switch was like working. Not only does it make contact, but it's registering with the machine. I made sure that the flipper hold power wasn't turned up. I've even turned down the flipper power itself to try to give those coils a little bit more breathing room. And they're just not happy, especially the left flipper. So I don't know if you can see this, but the coil wrap on that flipper is actually coming loose. It's gotten so hot. So a little bit of backstory, I played for about an hour and a half. After that playtime, I could tell that especially the left flipper was starting to get a little weak. So I turned off the game, worked on some other stuff. Then I decided to check the mech later on. I looked at it and I felt it in that whole bracket, not just the coils, but the bracket itself was so hot I couldn't even touch it. So something's amiss. And I've checked everything I can think to check. I've checked the coil sleeve. I've made sure all the connections are tight. I reset all the connections. It's still just running pretty hot. So I am going to put some fans on it to see if that helps. But that is still a work in progress. So let's talk about my typical play style. So I'm typically more of a flow player. I like to shoot on the fly. I don't like to trap up and aim and shoot. That's not how I typically like to play games. This machine has made me reconsider that play style quite a bit. It also has a lot of flowing elements to it, There's a lot of weird shots in this that remind me of my Dialed In. It's got some Pat Lawler vibes to it every once in a while based on how the diverter's going. But it also has some stop and shoot moments where you really need to trap up, aim, and hit a shot. And I typically don't like the trap up, aim, hit a shot type gameplay. It's not what I really like. But this game does something that I believe Deadpool also does really well, which is building the pressure, making you want to trap up, making you want to aim, making you want to hit that shot, because when you hit that shot, it feels so dang good, and there's such like a dopamine rush when you hit it. For example, the Death Eaters. Hitting that really tight shot feels oh so very satisfying whenever you see a Death Eater on the screen just like eat it. It feels so good. The game plays great. I'm a big fan of it. The only complaint I have is the 180 ramp. I just can't hit it consistently, and that's probably more me than the game, but it's a finicky shot. Hopefully as I play it more, I'll kind of get that shot nailed down to where it's not such a big deal, but right now that is my kryptonite. That shot is hard for me to hit. And it doesn't limit the game too much. So for example, even though I'm not great at that shot, I've still been able to get to the mini wizard mode Battle of Hogwarts, right? So I was able to get there once, even though I'm not great at that shot. And I think that's something to be said about the game, where even if there is one shot where you're really not the best at hitting it, you can still explore the heck out of the game and enjoy it. Let's talk about code at a very, very high level. So right now the game's got 4 multi-balls that I'm aware of, right? So you've got the Quidditch World Cup multi-ball, you've got the Death Eater multi-ball, you've got Explore Hogwarts multi-ball, and you've got the Golden Trio multi-ball. Each one of those are very independent. You can get to them different ways. But I feel that Explore Hogwarts multi-ball is very accessible to an average player after they get used to how the machine plays. Same with the Golden Trio multi-ball. So once you figure out that you can select skill shots, and if you hit those skill shots, it lights a lock immediately, it really makes getting Golden Trio multi-ball significantly more straightforward and accessible to the average player. Then you've got the Death Eater multi-ball, which it's tricky. It adds a lot of stress and hecticness, because that Death Eater shot, that's a dangerous shot. At least for me, it's a dangerous shot. So whenever you do get Death Eater multi-ball, it really is one more of a pinball type moment. The lights go down, special unique lighting comes up. It's a moment, and it feels really good because it's not a mode that you get to, or a multi-ball you get to every time you play the game. So it's more of a treat. I really like how they made that a little bit harder. And then finally, you have got your Quidditch World Cup multi-ball. And that is another fun multi-ball. So as you're playing the game, you can play Quidditch matches. And as you're playing Quidditch matches, not only do you have to win the Quidditch match, but you have to win it by catching the snitch. If you do that 3 times, then Quidditch World Cup lights up and you get to play that multi-ball. Again, that's more of a harder to get multi-ball than the Explore Hogwarts or the Golden Trio. And I like it. I think it's fun. I like that it gives me some challenge, something to aim for. And if you're able to get all 4 of those multi-balls done, then you get to play Battle of Hogwarts. I played that once, by the way. Like it's for me quite challenging to get to that point. But that's good, right? That's fantastic. That's what we want. We don't want a game where you can get to the end super fast. So loving the code there. All of those modes, by the way, as you build up those modes, those are all going on the side compared to the main mode, quote unquote main mode. And the main mode, which is tied to the movies, is associated with the scoop. I really don't like how they've incorporated this so far. We're not at 1.0 code, so hopefully they'll change it up a bit. And I've heard this feedback from others, but the story modes, the movie modes associated with this game, they feel like they have no weight. There's nothing driving you to hit them. So, for example, if you're playing a movie mode and you don't shoot any of the shots associated with that mode, the movie still continues in the background. Like, it'll just say you failed the lesson and then you go into the next lesson. There's you don't get the feedback that, you have to start the mode all over, or it stops the mode and makes you try to repeat or something like that, which I'm not saying that's the right way to do it. I don't know what that is, but the way that they've got the multi-balls and the movie modes all tied in together, the movie modes just get lost. So that's the overview of my Harry Potter Pinball Machine. Overall, in love with this machine. Absolutely adore it. This thing is never leaving. It's a great mix of challenging shots and flow. It's not something I'm going to get bored of. I don't think ever. I think it's so deep. I'll never get to the bottom of it, which is a good thing. So yeah, really loving it. I appreciate you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.